On this week's show, 80 Years of Batman, meet the newest Ninja Turtle, and we discuss the fate of the comic shop. Coming at you, it's Previews World Weekly.
Previews World. It's Wednesday. It's New Comic Book Day, which means it's time for Previews World Weekly. I'm one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
And I'm Thea, and we're here every week to remind you guys to stop at a comic shop and get involved in what's happening in the world of comics. And of course, if you're enjoying the show or you're just seeing this for the first time, be sure to give us a like, follow, and subscribe to keep all the nerd news coming.
And we teased earlier that we're going to do like a little 80 Years of Batman thing, right? Of course, it's been Batman's birthday all year long.
It's true.
But it just so happens that there's an Overstreet Batman price guide coming out today. And we're going to talk to one of the creators behind it. It's really interesting, really comprehensive, and like we're going to delve into that. But speaking of Batman, it just so happens that we're going to be doing a book club soon.
Yes.
And it's going to be hosted by Anamia. And the cool thing about this is that we gave our viewers an opportunity to kind of decide which book we were going to focus on, right?
Nice.
And we're going to do that every single month. The show is slated to be a monthly thing, hosted by Anamia. And the options this go round were Paper Girls, Star Wars by Jason Aaron and John Cassaday, and Batman Hush. And it just so happens that Batman Hush won out.
Yep.
So we're going to do Batman Hush.
Aww.
Wasn't my choice.
Hashtag
but that's the reason we polled we polled the viewers, polled our followers. And like, yeah, I won't say it was overwhelmingly Batman Hush, but it definitely, and you can see the results on screen. But like, it definitely was, it was clearly the early winner. Like, it just, like, as soon as we posted it, it was like, okay, well, Batman Hush is just sweeping at this point.
Man.
So we'll see. If I'm on the panel of hosts, or I'm sorry, guests on Anamia's show, then maybe I'll get into why I have some reservations about Batman Hush. Just, I won't give it away, but.
Fair enough.
Okay,
Fair enough.
sure. That's what you guys
You're
want.
allowed.
You're allowed. And you guys are allowed to vote and get what you want. And we'll do that every single month. But let's dive on in, right?
Yeah.
Because we got actually more Batman for you. Anamia's here. Hey. And she's going to show you what's at comic shops this week. Check it out.
What's up, Previews World? Mia here, and I'm going to give you a look at some of the new titles in stores this week. Here's what's at comic shops for the week of November 13th, 2019. And we're just getting started. The world of comics has even more to offer, so stop at a shop already, and you might just find your new favorite thing. See ya!
Thanks, Mia. And of course, that's just a taste of what you can get at your local comic shop this week. If you want a full list, head on over to previewsworld.com/new releases. What you reading?
Batman's Grave, number 2 is out this week.
Cool.
I picked number 1 and like a month ago, and it did not disappoint.
Good.
And it's Warren Ellis, who's one of my favorite writers of comics, period, and actually one of my favorite novel writers too.
Cool.
And it's Brian Hitch, who's also one of my favorite artists.
Yeah.
And I mentioned before, this is one of those books. I'm surprised it took this long to get Warren Ellis on a Batman book or Brian Hitch on a Batman book, either one. But to have them together is like, you know, chocolate in my peanut butter.
A++ team.
You know?
Chocolate in my peanut butter. Nice.
But it's cool because early in the book, they lay out that what I think is like a mission statement to subvert the police procedural,
Ooh.
right? Like, you know, and typically when you see a serial killer movie or a serial killer TV show like Mindhunter, right? They're like, we're going to get into the mind of the killer, right? Yeah, right? Well, they make a crack about that very early in the book.
Good.
And it just turns out that ultimately what they're going to do with this one is Batman has to get into the mind of the victim, not the killer.
Oh.
Like, that's the concept behind this. It's 12 issues, so it's going to be going on for like about almost a year at this point. And the artwork's great, the story's great, and there's also a very interesting tidbit. I actually posted this on my Instagram like a few weeks ago, which I thought was just like, so look, some of my favorite Batman stories are when Alfred's right and Batman's dead wrong.
Good.
And so there was just so happened to be an instance early in the book where Alfred makes a point to Bruce that, like, you know, what we're doing here is kind of you just beating up on poor people. Right. And Bruce's defense is very weak. He's like, they made choices. And it's just sort of like, oh, Bruce. And we're going to talk a lot about Batman later in the show, but like, yeah, I've always kind of seen Batman as like this, he's like kind of a petulant child. Like
Absolutely.
I get he's the world's greatest detective. He's a ninja assassin guy, not ninja assassin, but ninja
Yeah,
guy,
right.
you know. He's a Justice League member. Like, I think Batman is always cool, but I also think that Batman is very flawed.
Yes.
And he's a victim of trauma, right? If you want to use a more of a modern terminology, right? Which means that sometimes his judgment is bad.
Yes.
So for him to be the world's greatest detective, you know, sure, we can do that. But I mean, at the same time, I think it's more interesting when he's just wrong about something.
Yeah. Well, it's nice that he's human.
Exactly.
Right?
It's nice that he's human.
Yeah.
And I like that we're potentially unpacking that. So Batman's Grave, Batman's Grave number 2.
Yeah.
I was about to say something else, sorry. It's out this week, and you should definitely check it out.
Yeah.
So what are you looking forward to?
So I've talked about this book on the show before, Triage. And of course, this is one of those books that I picked just from the cover originally, which of course with comics you can do.
Yes, absolutely.
The artwork is gorgeous on every one of the covers of this, and actually the interior as well. And this is a really fun sci-fi book. So it's about a dedicated nurse whose name is Evie Pierce, and she suddenly wakes up in an alien landscape with 2 doppelgangers of herself. And the 3 women have to figure out why they've been brought together, and they realize they're being hunted by an unknown entity and this sort of thing. So they're having a race across space to figure out what the heck's going on.
Okay.
And just really cool, solid sci-fi,
Okay.
you know?
Nice.
Yeah.
I said this before, but like every time I saw the cover for it, I thought it was a video game.
Yeah,
I thought it was
right?
based on a video game for some reason, but it sounds like it should
would
be a
make
video
good
game.
video game. For sure. Absolutely.
But yeah, Triage number 2. So like, yeah, check
Great.
that. Oh, number 3. Sorry, check that out. It's available from Dark Horse right now.
Yes.
Another one of my picks this week, Punisher Soviet number 1 from Marvel Comics. At Baltimore Comic Con, I got a chance to interview Garth Ennis, who has. We actually talked about this a little bit. Is that apparently Marvel promised him a long time ago, hey, you can write Punisher as long as you want to, and for very good reason, because he is, like, at this point, I would say, the quintessential Punisher writer.
Nice.
And it's interesting because I think that this particular book is tapping into 2 things that he's tackled before with the Punisher, which is, of course, the Russian mob, but also the Soviet Union. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out. Like, I'm not going to give away too many details, but it's innocent as Punisher. You know, it starts off with him tackling the Russian mob, and then I'm assuming it eventually is going to segue into like him like just straight up leaving America and to get to the nitty gritty here. So it's Punisher. It's Ennis. Like, it's Jason Burrows, who did a book I love called Simon Spectre. Definitely check it out. It's worth reading.
Absolutely.
What else we got this week?
So this is a book that I discovered that looks really, really fun. It's called Folk Lords. This is the first issue, and it's about a young boy whose name is Ansel, and he lives in a fantasy world. So he lives in a world with, you know, the usual kind of stuff you find in a fantasy setting, and he's having visions of our world. With modern technology and everybody wearing suits, and he's like totally freaked out, needless to say, and he's trying to figure out what the heck this is, and he knows that these people called the Folk Lords will be able to help him. But trying to figure out where they are or contacting them is punishable by death.
Okay, all right, okay.
As one does.
Yeah.
So he has to sort of sneak around and figure out how he can get to these folks to figure out why he's having these visions.
Visions, interesting.
Yeah.
You know, it's actually kind of cool. Like this idea that someone would be, you know, obsessed and enamored with our reality in a fairy tale world.
Yeah, flip-flopping
right.
that is a really cool concept. So
Interesting.
I saw this and I was like, right up my alley for sure. Yeah.
I'm with that. Other big ticket items to pick up this week.
Yes.
Sorry. Actually, I was going to choose this one, but then I saw Punisher Sylvians, and I was like, I definitely want to read this. So, it's a book called Far Sector, and so it's two things I really love. First of all, Jamal Campbell, who's the artist, he did the book Naomi like last year. It ended up being a breakout hit. His artwork is phenomenal.
True.
Like, it's absolutely fantastic. I have to admit that I'm not that familiar with N.K. Jemisin. She's apparently a fantasy novel writer, and this is like her comic book debut.
Nice.
But the other thing I love about this is it's the Green Lantern.
Yes.
And as a concept, I have always loved the Green Lantern. They are the space police, and you can just go on any type of adventure you want. Like, I'm reading the Grant Morrison book right now because he's pretty much delivering like, you know, an adventure, an issue.
Yeah.
And these two combination of things, I'm like, yeah, I'm all over it. So
Lantern Corps for the win.
yeah, right. So yeah, Far Sector. Far Sector number 1's out this week. I'm a little upset because I didn't pre-order it. And here's a lesson for you guys. Pre-order.
Yeah.
Because I didn't pre-order it, and now I have to wait for number 1, but I'm going to jump all over when number 1 comes out. So yeah, big ticket item this week.
Yeah.
What other things can people look out for?
So another one is Fallen Angels. So this is, of course, we're all surprised. We got some mutants on the show.
Oh yeah. Fair enough.
And this one centers around Psylocke. So she finds herself in the new world that's been built, right, in the new era of all the mutant kind. And she has no idea what her deal is here. She's not sure what to do with herself. And then somebody from her past returns, but is almost immediately murdered.
Okay.
So she seeks help from a bunch of other mutants to get revenge.
Okay. All
Right? So it's
yeah.
a little side adventure, a little fun thing going on. So she's joined by Cable and X-23.
Okay.
And
All right.
off on some mutant adventures.
Some heavy hitters. I like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All
Good
right.
cast of characters for sure.
This recent crop of Dawn of X books is the first time I've read X-Men in a while.
Yeah.
And so I'm playing catch up on some of like the more recent history of some of these characters.
Sure.
And so when I first started reading X-Men, God.
Yep.
Well, first of all, we chose Excalibur last week, which
Yes.
features Betsy Braddock, who is or was Psylocke
Right.
at one point in time. But apparently, I guess this is Psylocke now.
Many faces of Psylocke.
But Psylocke also had a body swap situation where she had her eyes taken out by Mojo and replaced by this character called, what did we agree on? Revanche? Is that
Revanche,
Revanche? And then they also call her Quanon now.
Yeah, yeah.
I am
There's a lot.
completely lost here. So, guys, please, if you do know how does this line work?
Yeah.
Like, what is the continuity? Because like I'm completely lost on what is
There's
the
a
status
lot,
of Psylocke right now.
Yep.
So I want answers. I'm looking to you guys to help us out here. But yeah, definitely check out Fallen Angels. Also, Brian Edward Hill, great writer. So definitely check that out. And now, how about, speaking of Marvel, how about a Marvel trailer?
Yeah.
This is Amazing Spider-Man 2099 by Nick Spencer and friends. And when we come back, we'll do a little bit more with you guys. How about that? Check it out.
The Amazing Spider-Man issues that tie into 2099 and the 2099 one-shots are the coolest comics ever because they give you views of the future you've never seen before, and they will mess with your head.
We wanted to capture the spirit of the original 2099 while doing a completely new version and a completely new take.
What excites me most about this is putting Nick Spencer and the rest of our writers and the rest of our editors in the same space that the writers and editors back in 1992 of the original 2099 did. They wanted to look at the future.
You know, I was just so amazed by what we got when we let those writers loose to do whatever they want with these characters. One of the great things about the original 2099 was they brought in new identities and new origins to these characters, and so we wanted to build on that. But there are still some survivors out there that are gonna peak up.
Patrick Gleason, he is gonna make his Marvel in the biggest way possible.
I mean, Pat's such a blast to work with. I've been working with him on Amazing Spider-Man, and it's so much fun. And he's just one of the most gifted storytellers in comics, and never passes up an opportunity to go bigger with a visual, which is something I love, and just a great dude to work with.
The story is huge, and like a Spider-Man story should be, also really small and about Peter Parker and his life and everything that's going on. Dr. Doom's gonna show up. The Foreigner's gonna show up for you Spidey nerds out there. I'm not even gonna tell you some other characters because they're surprises, and I want you to enjoy yourself while you read it.
Well, like I said, it's a new take. but with a lot of hat tips and nods to the original and maybe more connective tissue than is apparent right away. So if you're a fan of the classic original 2099, stick around. There's going to be some good stuff for you in there.
This isn't an alternate timeline. This isn't a what if. This is the future of the Marvel Universe.
Look inside Amazing Spider-Man 2099 #1 from Marvel Comics, and there's going to be a bunch of one-shots that are also going to accompany that. So if you're into the storyline, be sure to keep an eye on that. And #1 is out today. But Thea's here, as she is always, and she's going to show you what's going on in the world of comics in the last 7 days. Here's the news.
New York Times best-selling writers Scott Snyder and Charles Soule and artist Giuseppe Camuncoli's new ongoing series Undiscovered Country has launched as the highest-ordered Image Comics debut in nearly 5 years, with orders at over 85,000 and growing reorder demand driving the issue immediately back to print upon release. The full-color ongoing science fiction adventure has been pegged as the next Walking Dead by many for its similarly sweeping world-building and dystopian DNA. Undiscovered Country #1, second printing, will be available at comic shops on Wednesday, December 4th, and additionally, the series was acquired early on by New Republic Pictures after a competitive bidding war for potential franchise development with Snyder and Soule attached to adapt the screenplay and serve as executive producers alongside Camuncoli. John Hilary Shepard will oversee development. Pretty cool, guys. Best-selling writer Curtis Weeb, newcomer artist Justin Osterling, and Oni Press are pleased to announce the launch of a new ongoing fantasy series, Dryad. Creator Curtis Weeb describes Dryad as a story that he's been working on in one form or another since he became a father 5 years ago. He wanted to tell a story about a couple whose lives were irrevocably changed by becoming parents, and wanted to set it against a backdrop where you never really find a slice of life family drama to be set, a fantasy world. An elf and a human find solace in the sleepy forest settlement of Frostbrook, where they plant their roots. But 13 years later, their twins, Griffin and Rana, are inexplicably drawn to an ancient door and discover more than they bargained for, inadvertently turning their world upside down. Now, they'll have to answer for their parents' mistakes and find that the past has a way of finding you, no matter where you hide. The first issue of Dryad will be available March 4th, 2020. The ongoing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book from IDW Publishing has achieved resounding acclaim from fans and critics alike on the march to its 100th issue. Now, in the aftermath of the cataclysmic City at War storyline, the newest addition to the team will step into the spotlight in a 3-issue miniseries, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Jennika. Written and illustrated by Bram Revel, who previously shed light on the character's mysterious origins in IDW's TMNT Universe series, the miniseries finds Jennika still trying to acclimate to life as a mutant. Drawn into conflict with a never-before-seen villain, she embarks on a journey that forces her to face her troubled past and conflicted present. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Jennika #1 will be available with a main cover by Bram Revel, plus 2 retailer incentive variant editions by Freddie Williams II and talented newcomer Jody Nishijima. Keep an eye out for this new chapter of Turtle Power fun coming this February. And last but not least, 2000 AD has announced it is launching a brand new title in April of 2020, Best of 2000 AD, as a new 12-issue US format, Perfect Bound series featuring a selection of the most incendiary and exciting new science fiction comics from the legendary UK publisher. Launching in April, Best of 2000 AD is intended as the ultimate 2000 AD mixtape, an anthology of full-color stories specially chosen to be accessible to a whole new generation of comic readers who may never have picked up 2000 AD in its traditional format. The first new major monthly title from the British publisher in almost 30 years, the first 100-page issue will be headlined by a self-contained 48-page Judge Dredd adventure and supported by 3 of the standout series from the Galaxy's Greatest Comic, primarily focusing on the critically acclaimed Rebellion era. The first issue of Best of 2000 AD is scheduled for release in late April and will be available in both North America and the UK.
Nice. I'm actually kind of excited for that one.
That sounds really fun.
Yeah, nice
and
entry point.
I know you love them.
Oh yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
And I definitely have not read a lot of their stuff, so this would actually be a really cool thing for me to get into, because they definitely have titles that I'm vaguely interested in.
Right, yeah.
So this gives me a little chunk, right?
Yeah. I mean, a lot of heavy hitters came out of there. I've never actually read. One of the things they were teasing is putting Halo Jones into that series, which is Alan Moore book. So yeah, I'm all for it. Like, get on the ground floor with that stuff.
Yeah,
Like, because I've been basically looking back in the trades and whatnot. So, but like, it'd be nice to kind of just read it month to month, get caught up in some 2000 AD history.
For
Also,
sure.
you gave a shout out to the Curtis Weeb thing when we were recording. Like, you actually are very interested in that.
Yeah, it sounds like a really cool storyline. And again, sort of one of those fantasy turned on its head things, kind of like the
not triage, it's folklore.
folklores, exactly, that I was talking about earlier.
Yeah,
like
right.
these taking fantasy and putting a new spin on it, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
No, and I know he's a popular creator as well, so people seem to really love his stuff.
Yeah.
So definitely keep an eye out on that. But it's time for toys. Natasha's here, and she's going to show you what is hitting store shelves today. Check it out.
Hey Previews World! Here's this week's rundown of some of the toys, statues, and collectibles hitting store shelves for the first time. Let's take a look inside the Previews toy chest for the week of November 13th, 2019. That's not all. Before heading to your local comic shop, be sure to check out PREVIEWSworld.com/new releases. There you'll find a complete rundown of everything a toy collector could possibly want.
And thanks, Natasha. And if you're looking for more from the Previews Toy Chest, just simply head on over to PREVIEWSworld.com/toy chest. And normally we give away a prize after Toy Chest, but hold on, because we're actually going to give away something that's going to be Batman related. And the reason we're doing that is because we're hanging out with Carrie Wood.
What's up? Woo!
Of the Overstreet Price Guide. How's it going, Carrie?
It's going, man.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you have been working diligently.
That's a word for it, sure.
Okay. Trying to give you some credit.
Relentlessly.
Yeah, that's actually, there might be more
Doggedly.
accurate on this. Now, you told us that you were working on the Batman Price Guide, like about early summer, I think. Actually, I forget when we had you on last time. It was for the manga month that we did. And you teased that, and I think we floated a video trailer on our YouTube about it, but I wanted to find out more about it now because it's actually coming out this week.
Yes.
So what is the Batman Price Guide?
It's exactly what it sounds like. It is a price guide to Batman, but more than just comics. So we've got pricing in there on action figures, movie posters, novels, video games, all sorts of stuff. And then we've also got in-depth profiles on all the characters. Many of the Batman creators from his obviously long and storied history are also featured. It's what I like to think is one of the most comprehensive guides to Batman collectibles on the market.
Yeah, I would imagine
Cool, very
so.
cool, yeah. So what was your role in all this, really?
I mean, I worked alongside my co-editor, Amanda Sheriff, to put this together. This was very much a labor of love for the both of us. We're both obviously huge Bat fans ourselves and big comic fans, and what better year to release the guide to Batman than on the anniversary of his debut, the 80th. So yeah, when we first thought this book up, we were like, it's a little too late in the game for us to like try and cram together an entire 400 some odd page book to release it on his 80th anniversary.
Right, yeah.
So we announced the book on his 80th anniversary, and now it's releasing this week, just in time for the holidays, of course.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, it's his birthday all year long, right?
course,
so
yeah.
whatever.
That's right.
And no, I mean, like, I'm glad you brought that up because I actually meant to mention that. They're like, yeah, DC has been celebrating his anniversary. It's his 80th, of course, his 80th of Detective.
Yep.
And so, like, there's actually more stuff to come actually celebrating Batman itself, like at your local comic shop. But, like, I also wanted to ask you, how comprehensive is it? Because, I mean, you probably found some really oddball things in here, right?
Oh, sure. I mean, there's oddities across the board. But yeah, I mean, within the sort of constraints that we were dealing with as far as a page count and the time that we were dealing with, it really goes in depth on any sort of Bat collectible you would want to have in a comprehensive Batman collection. Obviously, there are a lot of people who exclusively do Batman comics, and that's great. But that means that those people can then, pick up this book and learn a lot about the Batman video games or the Batman tabletop games. Or people who typically collect Batman toys can then learn about Batman original art or Batman movie posters and stuff like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned oddities. What kind of odd stuff is in there?
I think my favorite odd Batman collectible that I went out of my way to put in this book is a 1989 video game called Revenge of Shinobi, in which an unauthorized Batman appearance is in the game as the boss character.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah, so the boss in the original release, because in subsequent releases of the game, in second, third, fourth printings, they removed Batman because it was not authorized by DC at all. But in the original release, the boss of the game shapeshifts into Batman, Spider-Man, Rambo, and the Terminator.
None of which are licensed.
Beautiful.
No,
Of course,
no. Actually, the company ended up getting the license for Spider-Man. So Spider-Man is in later printings of the game, But that's sort of my favorite thing. Is just you're fighting this ninja boss and he just turns into Batman.
Why not?
And sure. So yeah, if you're out there trying to collect all of the Batman video games, I would consider the original printing of Revenge of Shinobi to be a must-have for that collection.
That's awesome.
That's perfect. I actually remember reading about that years ago. It was the Electronic Gaming Monthly, Game Informer days or whatever. But yeah, I actually completely forgot about that. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
What type of research did you have to do? Because this isn't just price guide stuff. There's actually articles in here.
Yeah, a lot of reading comics, a lot of talking to other collectors, going to conventions and talking to people. Just a lot of reading about Batman. Yeah. That's the one thing about working on these sort of focused books. I've been fortunate enough at Gemstone to do the guide to video games and the guide to tabletop games as well. And there always sort of hits a point in the creation process, the content generation process for these books, where I'm just I just don't want to think about this anymore. But fortunately with Batman, there were points where I was just I'm really sick of Bruce Wayne today.
Fair enough.
But fortunately, we don't cover just Batman. We're also covering Batgirl, Batwoman, Robin, all of the Robins, Nightwing, the extended Bat family, all of the villains as well. So fortunately, that sort of kept things mixed enough that I never quite hit that same sort of wall like I did with the video game book, where I was just I don't like video games today. I was always you know what? I'm not really feeling Batman, so I'm going to focus on Jason Todd or something.
Right.
Okay. Yeah. Cool.
It's actually I actually have had those moments too, because we both have to write a lot of articles. You write for Gemstone, I write for PREVIEWSworld, and he had those points where are we talking about this again today?
You're just over it.
Yeah, there was a point with the Star
Where's
Wars,
the next thing?
the release of Force Awakens, where we were doing all the toy announcements.
Oh my gosh.
And that went on for a solid week on top of the pre-movie release hype, and I was if I see BB-8 one more time, I'm so done with this.
BB-8 my brains out.
Right.
So what is the weirdest factoid for Batman that you found in there, or the most interesting?
I mean, besides the video game thing I sort of already discussed, I really like looking at the year that Batman spent without a sidekick. His very first year in comics, it was just Batman. So we actually have a really cool feature article in here called "The Year the Bat Flew Alone," and it's all about just his first year, no Robin, no sidekick, nothing like that. And I think people tend to forget that Robin didn't debut alongside Batman. Robin was basically a year later. And to have the sort of context as far as who Batman really originally was when he first stepped into comics in the Golden Age, I think is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, learning the origins of a lot of old characters like that is always super cool, I think.
Right. And I mean, I think that's the really cool thing about this. I got a chance to flip through this because you came by and it showed me a copy of it. And like, I think that's the really cool thing about this is like, you know, for a speculator, it's like, wow, that's worth that much, you know, like and I mean, sometimes like, you know, just because it's from like, the golden age or the silver age, or I know that a friend of mine was telling me the other day, there's a Batman villain who I guess is supposed to be popping up in the movie. That not a lot of people like if you've been following him in like just traditional media, then like you wouldn't really know about him. But you know, the price guide, of course, is like blowing up the numbers on that as well. Now it's big on the speculator market. But in addition to all that obvious stuff, right, you get a little bit of history too, which is really nice. So yeah,
I mean, there's no such thing as a, you know, $2 million comic book without the historical context.
Exactly. Yes.
So it's always important for us at Gemstone and at Overstreet to make sure that we are providing the context as to why these characters are so popular and why they're so important in pop culture. So
yeah. And actually, speaking of Overstreet, you guys are about to turn 50. Actually, first of all, can you give people like a rough idea of what exactly is Overstreet for those who don't know?
Oh, sure. The Overstreet comic book price guide is, as you were starting to mention, we're coming up on the 50th anniversary of the original Overstreet comic book price guide. So Bob Overstreet has been putting in the work for 50 years, which is incredible. I can't imagine doing anything for 50 years, and Bob's been at it for that long. The comic book price guide came along and really helped legitimize comic collecting as a hobby. And obviously the grading companies that have come along after that have only further enhanced the collector's market and whatnot. But 2020 marks the 50th anniversary of Overstreet, so we are celebrating in a big way. Overstreet number 50 will arrive at San Diego Comic-Con, and we're going to have a bunch of different covers. I'm not sure how many of them I'm allowed to talk about today, but I can tell you, because we've already announced it, one of our covers is going to be a Winona Earp cover, which is awesome. So obviously that show has such a strong fandom. And I feel like a lot of people who watch the show aren't super familiar with the comics. So definitely check that out. That cover is going to be awesome. We've got a lot of other stuff in the works. We will be coming out with some other sort of companion volumes to number 50 next year. But other than that, stay tuned and look forward to the announcements we'll be making in the coming months here. So
very cool.
I'm just saying, Wonder Woman's going to have her 750 next year.
Oh boy.
It's not her anniversary necessarily, but it's definitely an anniversary issue. So. Like, Carrie's like, don't sign me up for that. But no, this is out today. Like, I just want to point that out one more time. You can pick it up. It doesn't have the price on the back of this one.
It's $30.
It's $30. Okay, cool.
Price is on the front. So.
Oh, okay, there you go. Yeah, boom, there you go. But like, and it's comprehensive. It's really cool. Like, you get a little bit of everything from toys to video games to comics, et cetera, et cetera. And yeah, it's just a little nice little $30 package. You know, so
who doesn't like Batman?
Right. I mean, that's really what
People
it boils down to.
Right.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right. I have these moments sometimes where I get sick of Batman, actually, because you have these conversations with people sometimes. You're like, okay, Batman can't do everything, but ultimately, I love the character. Like, and I love what the character stands for. So
I feel like, you know, even if you're not the biggest fan of Batman overall, everyone has their favorite version of Batman.
Exactly. Yes.
Whether it's animated series or Adam West or any of them, everybody's got their Batman. So.
And the thing I find fascinating about him is he's been around as long as there's been a popular culture.
Oh yeah.
Like roughly as long as there's been a popular culture. I don't think that term's really coined until the 60s.
Yeah.
But he's definitely part of that, like that line,
yes,
you know, in American history. So yeah, thanks, Carrie. I appreciate
Absolutely.
it.
Thanks for having me.
So one more thing before you go.
Here we go.
Because off camera, all right, we didn't talk about this earlier in the show, but off camera, we talked a little bit about like Sonic the Hedgehog. The new trailer came out.
Yep.
And you have a little conspiracy theory
I
here.
do have a little conspiracy theory.
And I love my conspiracy theories, so I want to hear this.
We all do.
This may be like a little tinfoil hat.
It's okay.
But
the more tinfoil, the better.
I'm already on board.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so the very first trailer with like cursed Sonic and his real human teeth,
The Terror Hedgehog,
came out in April, right? And the fan backlash to that was just enormous.
Yes.
It was overwhelmingly negative.
It was very
People
notable.
were like, what is this?
what have you done?
What have you done to
our
this
child?
character? And then the folks at the studio were like, all right, hold up. we hear you. We're going to work on redesigning the character. It means we have to push back the release date of the film.
Right.
Because it was originally scheduled for November.
Right.
Basically this week, I think it was supposed to come out.
Yeah, you're right.
And then they were like, okay, it's going to be pushed back to February. So we're going to work on redesigning the character. And then we're going to show you what we got. And the new character looks great. It looks like Sonic. It looks like classic Sonic.
It's undeniable.
Like Genesis era Sonic.
Yeah.
I love Sonic. I grew up playing the games.
I think you're in good company.
Yeah. So what I think happened, like knowing even the little bit that I do about animation and graphics and whatnot, I don't think that they ever did a full version of the film with like original human teeth cursed Sonic.
Human teeth cursed Sonic.
I don't know what else to call him. Like that's a cursed image.
Fact.
Right. Fair enough.
I really think that they realized that their original design was probably not going to go over well. And I think they started the redesign process probably before that original trailer even came out.
I can believe that.
And I think that they pushed that original trailer just to have the fan backlash, to have their viral moment with Sonic's teeth. And I'm never going to let the teeth go. And I think that they decided to wait for the fan backlash so that they can put out this new trailer, which looks good.
Yeah, that's right.
So that they can be like, all right, you see how well we listened to the fans. You see how well we did by the fans, and we're doing this for you because this is what you guys asked for. But I think that they started this process
way earlier.
Way earlier.
I wouldn't be shocked by that. Like I think we're definitely in an era. Like once the internet became a thing, right? You know, and like once, well, I should say more specifically, once corporations understood that the internet was a thing.
Yeah.
Like
absolutely.
using this to like test out ideas like in public was kind of been like their go-to for a while now. So
It's so easy to do.
It's so easy to do,
Right?
right? And also, you know, you got to go with the attitude that like, you know, any press is good press.
Right.
You know, bad press is good press too. So
They're talking about it.
they're talking about
exactly.
it.
Everyone was talking about the original Sonic trailer.
Yeah.
And so now you have a better looking Sonic, but you look at how different it is.
Right, yeah.
And I can't imagine that even with contemporary technology that people would have been able to remodel a new Sonic, reanimate a new Sonic for what is probably going to be roughly a 2-hour movie.
Yeah,
That's
right.
so much work.
Yeah, no, it
That's
is.
so much work. And I
Right,
don't think that that's something that they could have done in 4 months or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I mean, not without shelling out, I'd imagine, like some
Yeah.
serious
That too,
money.
yeah.
So.
and the budget on the movie is something like 90 million.
Right,
Like
yeah.
it's what you would sort of expect for a high key animated feature,
Right.
but not over the top.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
I'm co-signing.
I'm here.
I think
Okay.
you might
I'm
be
here
onto
for it.
something there.
Yeah.
I don't think that's out of
Yeah.
the realm of possibility at
Yeah.
all.
We've had our suspicions, my friends group and I as
Yeah.
well. We've been like,
Right. Yeah. I mean, turn the favoritism in their, you know, put it in their direction, you know.
Because
so.
I think if they had released this trailer, this week's trailer, as the first trailer, people would have been like, "Oh, cool! That looks neat. That looks like
Right.
Sonic. Interesting."
Yeah.
But
And
I think
then-
by releasing it after their original trailer, now people are like, "Oh my God,
It's
this
so
is
much
incredible!
better."
It's so much better." So
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're pulling the strings of public opinion with this.
I mean, you know, I'm on board. I totally get it.
Yeah.
But Carrie, thank
Yeah.
you very much for coming out.
Absolutely. Thanks
Thank
for
you
having me.
For talking about Batman. Thank you
Yeah.
for talking about Sonic conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
And I also want to point out that you do the manga monthly column.
do.
Every month on PREVIEWSworld.com. Carrie's always giving suggestions about what you should pick up from your local comic shop. So definitely tune into that. And we will definitely have you back on to talk about manga in the future.
Excellent.
Anything else Overstreet is going on? Like, we'll have you on for the 50th. How
awesome.
about that?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Cool.
We're gonna have a lot going on in the next few months. So
Awesome,
it's gonna be exciting.
So we also have a giveaway this
It's
week.
true.
And it actually is the Batman price guide. I'll hand it to you because it's normally your thing.
So, if y'all out there want to win a copy of this big, beautiful boy, we want to know how you first discovered Batman.
Oh.
So let us know on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're watching us, and we will take entries until next week and pick one of y'all to win this.
Cool. And so we're going to switch gears, and we're actually going to show you guys a trailer for 20XX. It's from the Luna Brothers, actually one of the Luna Brothers, and it's coming from Image Comics. Check this out, and we'll be right back. was 20XX from Image Comics by one of the Lunar brothers. I almost goofed earlier and said both of them, but it's actually one of them. And then the other writer is making her comic book debut. So we were going back and forth about this a second ago. I'm assuming it's 20XX. I have not heard anyone say the book out loud.
So we don't know.
So we don't know, and they don't say it in the trailer.
No.
But I'm hoping it's not like a Powers of 10 thing.
It's like suddenly it's Roman numerals, so it's actually just 2020.
Right. We were going back and forth, and she was like, "Is it 2010?" And then you said, and I was like, "No, I don't think so."
No.
But then you said 2020. I was like,
that makes so much sense, but we don't know.
We don't know. I'm sorry, guys. Lunar Brothers. They're from Virginia. I apologize to both of you for whatever reason. Anyway,
for being you.
And it's probably good because they did a book called The Sword, they did a book called Girls, and they did another book called Ultra, which I absolutely loved when it came out. Yeah. So yeah, definitely check it out and let us know if we're saying it wrong. Someone at Image, somebody tell us. I apologize. But we actually neglected to mention last week's winner.
We did.
Right.
So last week's winner of the Red Hulk figure is Grimwolf100, who said, "My favorite Hulk story is Future Imperfect. Seeing how Hulk could possibly turn was very interesting and fun to read."
And he's not wrong. Like, I actually am ashamed to admit, I only read that book recently, like about 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And it came out like in the late 90s. But yeah, I was actually kind of thrown by how good it was. Like, it was just like, boom. Like, to the point that I was like, man, they still haven't given us like a Hulk arc in these movies that I can like, that is just the Hulk.
Sure,
Like,
yeah.
I mean, he's had an arc over the course of several movies.
Yes.
But just a Hulk-focused arc would be really nice, and Future Imperfect would be a great jumping-on point for that for a lot of people.
Nice.
So yeah, good on you, man. But now it's time for Social Swamp.
Fact.
Should I preface this a little bit?
No.
No. Okay. All right. I'm gonna let you explain this one, because if I start, I'm gonna be all salty about it.
Juicy.
It's juicy. Here's Social Swamp. Check it out.
Hello, my friends. Social Swamp this week is quite juicy indeed. And of course, this is a tweet from Comics Explained. And this dropped while we were at, I think, Baltimore Comic Con.
I think so, yeah.
And we sort of forgot about it, right?
Right, yeah.
And then
We were busy.
decided, time to get back to this one. So Comics Explained said, "In the age of smartphones and tablets, I don't really understand why so much emphasis is put on keeping physical comic book stores alive." Ouch, Charlie. So we wanted to know some of the reasons that you all out there love your local comic shop and love a physical comic shop. And here we go. We got some great responses. Dave Witham said, "I'm sat here with a broken leg, so I'm not going to be going to my local store for weeks, but because my local store is run by great people who, after many years of going there, I can now call friends, they not only sent my comics out to me, but with free postage and a get well soon message from my favorite hero. And in a couple of weeks, they'll be popping around to visit me. Try getting that from a digital service."
I'm just saying.
That's a fact.
That's a very good point.
That's a very good fact. Rob Hamlin said, "You don't even own the digital. Read the small print.
Boom.
No secondhand market or investment potential, yet often more expensive to buy digital than a subscription. Digital is just a ripoff." Andy Schwartz said, "I love going by myself and spending hours hunting for cool books, but I make sure I go regularly with my kids. I see comic shops as little art museums where we can own the art and the story for a few bucks. Stories that are happy, sad, silly, weird, strange, exciting, scary, mind-bending, epic, and cosmic. Stories that not only push the boundaries of my kids' imaginations, but also what may be possible in life." And last, Sean Thornton said, "The thrill of the hunt for that special key or comic that is important to you can't be duplicated digitally. It's part of what keeps us in touch with our memories and humanity. Nothing brings back great memories of childhood for me quite like walking into a brick-and-mortar comic store and browsing the shelves and boxes."
I like that. That's good. No, it's, I'm not sure if, okay, so Comics Explained is a YouTuber. He goes by the name Rob. I am not sure if this is a troll.
Right.
If it is a troll, all right, fine, sure, whatever.
You did it.
You did it, right. If it's not a troll, it's a little bit disappointing.
Yeah.
Because his entire feed is about him breaking down comic storylines. Like, that's his entire shtick.
Okay. Well, if that's his shtick, then it would make sense that he doesn't necessarily care about the physical copies. If he's talking about
Potentially.
storylines and even artwork or whatever, just the visuals are all he needs. So he doesn't need to have the physical copy because he's not there for the nostalgia, he's not there for the investment, right? So fair enough. But in the realm of comics, the store is still important.
It's still important.
Absolutely
exactly. Yeah.
important.
So you're nicer than I am, because I have some very strong feelings about this. I mean, first of all, look, like we are owned by Diamond Comics Distribution,
Exactly.
right? Like we are beholden to comic book stores,
Yeah.
and we're very proud of that fact.
For sure.
But look, I like Comics Explained. Like when there are storylines that I don't want to invest in, but I want to find out what happened in them. Like I might even do it with the Psylocke thing later.
There you
right?
go.
I go to his channel, or I'll go to some other YouTubers and like try to figure out like, okay, what is the missing piece of the storyline?
The moral equivalent of the Cliff Notes, right?
Right, exactly. It legit is a Cliff Notes version of storylines.
There you go.
That said, to be a comic book person, right? To be deeply entrenched in comic book culture and to throw dirt on comic shops is like, I don't get that. I don't get that at all.
It was just it's sort of blind, really.
Right, yeah. Actually, a few of the comments, we didn't post, these are comments on our feed. A few of the comments under his feed were actually saying exactly that. They were like, man, this is like unacceptable,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, way to not know who your people are, right?
Right, yeah, exactly. And I think there's another aspect of this too, which is like, I've mentioned this before in the show. I've always kind of had the attitude that the mainstream media in general, like, kind of gets off on beating up on nerds.
Of course.
Like, I think it's just kind of a thing. Like,
Always has been, probably always will be.
Right. I saw I've always talked about how like Hollywood hated comic books, right? And like you can always kind of see that in the talking points that they have when they try to adapt something. Like, oh, we don't. Joel Schumacher's even like, well, we don't want it to be about comic books. Then you see Batman Forever, and it's like a comic book.
Like, come on, guys.
Come on, guys. And then like of course, like all the heat that Marvel Studios gets from the rest of Hollywood, because like they're like, oh, these aren't movies like the Martin Scorsese thing, right? Comic books is sometimes used as a slur,
Yes.
right? And I find that interesting because there's, okay, this really gets
Take
to
a
me.
breath.
This really gets to me. There's a portion of nerddom that gets off on seeing things die.
Yeah.
And I find that very troubling because it's almost like, why are you getting off on taking things away from people?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not to say that they are capable of doing it,
Right.
but if they were, they talk. If they could, they talk like they would.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I think that like comic shops, like people pointed out, they're cultural centers, they're community centers. They are spaces for people to talk about comics without judgment. Because as mainstream as comics are, right? It's really comic book movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like,
Absolutely.
we don't live in Japan where people
No.
read comic books on the subway. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah, the thing that's most in public eye are films.
our films, exactly. And so, yeah, this thing where it's like, not only do we have, the mainstream media, right? Yeah. Like, we were talking about conspiracy theories earlier, right? The mainstream media beating up on nerds, but now we have nerds beating up on nerds.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on, guys.
That's always kind of been a bit of a thing
It's
anyway.
always been a
the
thing.
old gatekeeping
Oh, yeah.
and absolutely like,
Oh, yeah.
are you a real nerd or
Oh, yeah.
what? And it's like, okay, we can't just enjoy ourselves with the bits of
Right.
it that we like.
Yeah.
Come on.
And like,
come on.
and that door very much swings both ways,
Yes.
as we're seeing right here, right now, right?
Yes.
Like I would never accuse Rob of being a gatekeeper necessarily,
No.
because his entire model isn't really not built on that.
Right.
But at the same time, it's just sort of like, come on, man.
Yeah,
really?
very short-sighted.
Yeah, very short-sighted.
Super short-sighted.
Like, we don't need something to die in order for something to succeed.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like, these two things can coexist and people can experience things any way that they want to.
Yes, and they
So,
should.
Yeah, and they should. So I'm gonna leave it there because I have some more notes here, but they're not very nice. So we're just gonna turn the page. But that's almost it for this week's show.
Yes, indeed.
Might as well wrap it up.
Word.
Comic shop shout out time.
Fact.
Speaking of which,
Yes.
what do we got?
Support your LCS, y'all. If you want to have your favorite local comic shop shouted out on the show, be sure to let us know who they are. Use the hashtag #SupportYourLCS, and you could get a feature. This week, we're going to leave you with photos of Oh Yeah Comics from Muncie, Indiana, and that was sent in by Stephen Craig.
Every time I read that, the name of the store, I always hear in my ear, "Oh yeah,
Oh yeah,
Comics."
Comics.
But yeah,
Perfect.
shout out to all yeah Comics in Muncie, and I guess that's it for us this week.
Finito.
There you go. We had a lot of stuff happening today. We had some conspiracy theories, a little bit of nerd rage.
Yep.
A lot of Batman.
Solid show.
I think it's a solid show. We knocked it out the park, guys. But that's it for this week. I am one of your hosts, Troy Jeffrey Allen.
And I'm Thea, and we'll see you at the spinner rack.
watching Previews World Weekly. If you like the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any future episodes.